Welcome to FPL Selection. Today we will take a look at what will almost certainly be my final draft ahead of the Game Week 1 deadline on Friday at 6:30 UK time, so make sure you get your teams in before then. So I think I prioritised strategy mostly up until this point rather than sort of nailing down the full 15 players. But once I'd sort of decided that I was going to go for the bench boost in 1, free hit in 2, and then sort of wildcard 3 or 4, that sort of made it easier for me now just to get the structure and sort of finalise the last few picks. So just to say, the reason for bench boost 1 for me is just simply to get out of the way. I find you sort of end up spending weeks trying to manage your team. You know, you don't pick certain players because you're worried about the bench boost. You know, you start carrying lots of money on the bench, so then you can't have some of the better players in your first 11. So for me, I just feel like getting out of the way, it's one less thing to think about when you're building your squad. Probably because I'm going to wildcard early as well. It's, you know, I can fix the squad quite quickly. And yeah, I just think it's just something I did last season that it worked really well. I got a nice fast start, wildcarded out of it, and then, you know, had a nice long-term squad afterwards. I didn't have to sort of think about any of the bench players. I could leave a couple of dead spots. So I liked it last season. I think it makes a lot of sense this year, especially with the double chips, which is why I'm probably going to free hit in 2. It's mostly because I don't really want any Arsenal players for most of the first few weeks. But the Leeds fixture in game week 2 just seemed to make sense to have a few Arsenal players. So most likely I'll have Saka in as captain on that week, and then I can pick 2 others. I think it makes sense, especially with a lot of the players that game week 1, they have a good fixture. They have, you know, not such a good fixture in 2. So I think Spurs is a good example of that with City away in the second game. So for me, yeah, it just seems to make sense. I can free hit in 2. I come back to this team for game week 3, who, you know, the fixtures aren't too bad. There's a few sort of, you know, middling fixtures, but I can sort of make my decision when I get to 3. I've also kept $500,000 in the bank with this draft, mainly because I think I'm going to get Fernandes in for Verts in game week 3. Again, that's for captaincy. He's got Burnley, so I'm just sort of covering that base if I don't want a wild card. And I mean, I can always change my mind. The 0.5 can come in handy as well for, you know, any other players that if they've risen in price or something and I really feel like I want them. And I've tried to pick players in this team who have a good fixture game week 1 and have a bit of attacking potential. So I'm not really thinking too much about the defcons because it's just going to be a 1-week team. And it's, you know, you just want to go for that explosivity. Who's going to get you the most points in one game? You're probably not going to pick a centre-back that might get you 4 points. I'd rather pick sort of the full-backs that, you know, might get forward, might get an assist, might score a goal, that kind of thing. So, you know, this might look a little bit different to what, you know, a lot of teams that you might be seeing, but that's more just because of the, you know, the strategy here. Because I do like a lot of the centre-backs with the defcon potential, but especially Bruno Fernandes. I'd love to have Bruno Fernandes for all 38 game weeks, but yeah, I'm just going to go for a slightly more, you know, 1 week in mind type of team. So in goal, I've got Sells, who's got Brentford at home. There was no sort of 4.5 goalkeeper that stood out with a good fixture in the first week, so I've sort of come to the conclusion that I should have some Forest defence, and I think that was just a consequence of only looking at the 1 game week. I just didn't really sort of consider Forest that strongly, and yeah, I just sort of got lost in my own thoughts, I think. And just coming back to it, I mean, they did tail off a little bit with the defensive numbers last season, but, you know, the pre-season form, 7 games, 5 clean sheets, you know, they only scored 1 goal as well, so it seems like they are prioritising, again, just being solid before anything else. I've actually gone for the double up with Neco Williams. I would probably prefer Murillo or Milenkovic, just with the attacking threat of set pieces and, you know, the strong potential for the defcon numbers, but Williams is $500,000 cheaper, so he's going to have to do. He had some good attacking threat towards the end of last season. I did own him in my squad, so yeah, I think having that double Forest defence, Brentford at home, yeah, it seems like a good bet to make for the first week. And yeah, I think that's a good shout for, trying to pick out a clean sheet for 1 week. And Brentford, not really sure what their attack's going to look like. Obviously lost in Boomo. And this is sort of trying to get a transfer, and they've confirmed he won't play this weekend. So yeah, I think it's a good chance for clean there for Forest. And then Porro has Burnley at home, which again, newly promoted team, should be a good defensive fixture there, you'd imagine, for Spurs. When you look at Burnley's attackers, I mean, it's sort of championship level really. And Porro's just got so many routes to points. You've got, the potential for the clean sheet in this match. Very attacking. Should be on most of the set pieces for Spurs now, especially with Maddison's injury. And, should be able to get forward quite a lot in a game where they're expected to keep the ball a lot. So, yeah, I'm really excited about him. I think he's going to be a really nice pick. And I did have him before his performance in the Super Cup, so it's a bit annoying to see that really, because I think he's going to be in a lot more teams now. But also gone for the double up with Romero. Again, I think it's just a good fixture. Just go for the double up, see if we can get 2 clean sheet sets there. And Romero's just always a threat from the set pieces. Always gets his head on things. Very good on the defensive contributions as well. So, he's that sort of player that you don't really want to own him for a whole season, because especially when Spurs don't have a good defence. I mean, Frank should put something right with that, you would imagine, compared to last season. But yeah, I just think it's a bit of an exciting, different pick, bit of fun for just 1 week. So yeah, he's in at the moment. Then moving on to the midfield, Salah, again, one of the first names in the team sheet. Bournemouth at home. It's a good fixture, especially with Bournemouth sort of losing 3 of their back 4 from last season and the goalkeeper. You imagine there's going to be a little bit of adjustment time for all of them to start playing together, and I think they've only signed 1 defender so far to make any replacements. So chances are Liverpool are going to have some chances in the game, and you've always got to have Salah there really for any good fixture for Liverpool. He was a top scorer last season. Points were incredible. Probably won't hit the same levels this year, but yeah, he's my captain for game week 1. And I just think you can make up all the sort of, theories that you like, that maybe he'll have less goal share this season, which I do I agree with. I think that, he might drop in numbers, but he's proven so many times. He always starts really fast as well. Game week 1, I've had a few times I've gone against him and it's been a disaster. So I think it's better to start with him. He's the most expensive player in the game. You can always cheapen down, in a few weeks' time if you don't see enough from him, rather than, trying to get him in after a couple of weeks if you, see that he's playing really well. So yeah, he's a dead cert for me and captain for game week 1. And then for the double Liverpool attack, I've gone for Wirtz. Could easily have gone Gakpo or Ekitike, just as a 1 sort of 2 week maybe punt. I think Wirtz has the most routes to points out of those players. He's very creative. He's got plenty of goals, in his history as well. He's now playing in a better team with better players, so you'd imagine, he's hit double figures in goals and assists the last 2 years. Imagine there's going to be plenty more for him in this Liverpool team. He's on some set pieces as well, so I think when you're sort of looking short term, you go for someone who's got the most, opportunity to score points. And the other factor with Wirtz is I think he's going to be very popular in game week 1, so you take the risk and go with Gakpo or Ekitike, and it doesn't go well, you're going to be behind everyone that's picked Wirtz. So yeah, I'm just going to be a bit safe there and stick with Wirtz, although like I said, I could easily pick any of the other 2. And Palmer has Crystal Palace at home, and now I don't necessarily think it's a great fixture. I think Palace are quite good away from home, and it'll be interesting to see how Chelsea do. They've had a very short pre-season, pretty much nothing after the Club World Cup, but then they, are they still going to be relatively fit if they've only had a short time for the holidays? It'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure on that one. We'll have to see how it goes, but I think Palmer will be desperate to, get back to his top form this season. He really dropped off the second half of last year, and he is one of the best players in the league. He'd be disappointed with what happened there, but he did look closer to his best in the Club World Cup. So I mean, he's such a good player. I just think you've got to start with him, and if it goes wrong, it goes wrong, and you can always drop down to someone else. But they've got some great fixtures, Chelsea, and he's going to be highly earned in the first week. So I think a home game. He's now got Pedro to play alongside, and you can already see an understanding with those two. And Palmer's such a creative player, and having a better finisher in Pedro up there, should increase his numbers as well. So yeah, he's a definite lock again for me in that. And next up is Minter, home against Fulham. Now, I think for me, Minter is just one of my fun picks. He's a player with so much potential. I think he can really reach a higher level. He's definitely got all the attributes there to really push on this season. And he's playing against Fulham, who are missing Anthony Robinson. He's had a surgery and he's out a little bit longer now. So probably going to be playing against, a much weaker defender. I think Sessegnon's also an injury doubt, but even so, he's not really known for being a defensive fullback. So I think there's going to be a bit of space for him. There's going to be, a not so good fullback to run at. And yeah, just think Brighton have got lots of nice attacking potential. So yeah, it's a bit of a roll of the dice on Minter. Could easily go for Rutter, or, if you had a bit more budget, you might go Matoma. But I think with 6 million, that's not too bad a price for someone that could potentially be, hitting good numbers this season. And moving on to the strikers, got Mateta away to Chelsea. He's had a very good pre-season and plenty of minutes. So it's one of those situations where, he should be absolutely sharp and ready to go for the new season. And he's up against Chelsea. They've lost Colwill to injury. And they haven't, like I said, we're not sure. They haven't had the proper pre-season. So I wonder if they'll tire earlier in the game. And Mateta is just one of those players. He'll keep going. He's going to be a pest for the whole match. On the counter-attack, like I said, Palace were very good away from home last season. Suits their system to play on the counter, and yeah, he's the perfect player there to be on the end of things. So I've been bitten by Mateta a few times when he's hit runs of form, and I've ignored him. So yeah, I think for me, he's pretty much locked in now. I think he's one that a lot of people won't go for at the start because they're worried about the fixture against Chelsea. And yeah, might be some nice points there that not many people are going to get. And then Fulkrug is away to Sunderland. He's been playing in a front two with Bowen in pre-season, sort of in a 3-5-2 that West Ham are playing. And he's basically the striker that's been asked to sort of play in the box and just get on the end of the chances and finish. So, he's definitely got a point to prove after an injury hit first season. And, he was playing with Dortmund a couple of seasons ago and scored a lot of goals. He's, one of those, he's a proper number 9. He's going to be there to finish the chances. I think, playing against a newly promoted side, they'll be well up for it, but, the level of player he's going to be playing against, you'd fancy him to at least get a few chances in the game. And I think it's a nice 1 week punt that not many will have. So they'll either go for Bowen or, they might avoid West Ham altogether because they were pretty bad last season. But I think Potter's a very good manager, and now he's had time to work, especially with a full pre-season after 6 months with the group. Should see more of a Potter team this season. I think everyone sort of forgets how good Brighton were before he went to Chelsea. So yeah, I'm sort of quietly confident on West Ham. I think they're going to have a good season. And Fulkrug, if he can stay fit, yeah, should get a few goals. And Barry is away to Leeds. It's another fun pick, this one, I think. He looks like a real handful. He's sort of very tall, strong, makes a lot of good runs in behind. Looks a bit sort of rough around the edges, but, if you see a few of his goals, he can certainly finish. But I just like the sort of chaos element of him. And he's going to be playing against most likely Rodon and Strike. So, it's championship level defence. So you imagine there's going to be some chances for him. And Everton have put together some nice attacking players there to supply him. So yeah, I think it would just be a bit of fun for the Monday night game as well, just to have something in that game for a 1 week punt. Another fun pick that's, something good to watch. There is a little bit of doubt whether he's going to start ahead of Beto. He did start the last pre-season friendly, which, often is going to be the first team for the first game, but I'm not sure who is going to start. I think he is more likely to, but I'm just going to do a little bit of research, see if I can find out anything before the deadline tomorrow on Friday. But I think, to be honest, if for some reason I got the confirmation that Beto was going to start, then I would just pick Beto instead, because I think still similar type of player in a good fixture. So yeah, we'll just have to do a little bit more research on that. So if anyone hears anything or knows anything, please let me know in the comments. That'd be really helpful. Thanks. So moving on to the bench, I've got Bezo, I think that's how you say it, is at home to Newcastle. So he's the backup Aston Villa goalkeeper. Martinez is suspended for game week 1. So yeah, I just thought there's no sort of standout 4.5 million options, and thought it'd be a nice roll of the dice, a player that probably no one's going to have in their squads, especially if they're not bench boosting and wildcarding early. So home against Newcastle. Newcastle, obviously the Isak situation, they're not going to have a proper striker, and their record's been pretty poor at Villa Park. So yeah, just a bit of a fun roll of the dice. Again, I couldn't really pick out any of the 4.5 goalkeepers that I'd say, oh, definite clean sheet in game week 1. So yeah, again, a little bit of a fun pick, I think. Then Munoz is away to Chelsea. He was a lock in my squad. I think he was the first pick I made when the game opened. I just love watching him play. He's basically just a Palace attacker, and he gets the clean sheet points. He's so far forward, very creative, and supposedly quite good on the DEFCON numbers as well. So I think he just has so many ways to get points. He's fun to watch. You know, Palace can do it against anyone. Like I said, away from home, they're very good last season. Some good results against some of the better teams. So I think he's one that you just need to own for, you know, every single game. Play him every week, and, you know, because you never know when those surprise points are going to come. So yeah, for me, he was always in that team from day one, whatever strategy I was going to play, because I just love watching him play as well. Then Reinders is away to Wolves. Yeah, another fun pick, this one. He had 10 goals for Milan last season, and he sort of reminds me of Gundogan from a couple of years ago at City, just arriving in the box late, getting all the cutbacks and tap-ins. Something City didn't really have last season. I think they missed, especially with Rodri out. It was, you know, they didn't really have anyone driving through from midfield, and was sort of all a little bit leggy. And yeah, he's supposed to be the answer to that. That's what they wanted, was an athletic 8, and he looks to be the answer to that. I think he's a bit sort of uncertain on his minutes. I think with Rodri out, there's a good chance he's going to play. Maybe he ends up playing a bit deeper in the first few games, but just going to take a little gamble there, I think. Hopefully I can get a bit more confirmation on it, but he's only 5.5 million, so for a City midfielder in a good fixture, you know, he got 2 goals in the last pre-season friendly, so yeah, I think that's just a bit of fun again, and for a good team with a good fixture, every chance I might get a nice little return there. And then Diouf is away to Sunderland. He's actually quite low owned, and Wan-Bissaka is the one that's getting all the ownership so far. But I think he's, from the bits and pieces I've seen of pre-season, he's much more attacking than Wan-Bissaka. Gets forward, puts in some great crosses, and a couple of assists as well. Having the likes of Fulkrug and Bowen, you know, playing up front to get on the end of the crosses, I think, you know, there's some nice routes to points there. And as I said earlier, I think Potter is going to have West Ham, you know, much better team this year. They're going to be well set up defensively. He's had the time to, you know, really put his thoughts across, get rid of the players he doesn't want, bring in the ones he does, and Diouf is one of those he's brought in specifically to play left wing back in a back 5. So yeah, I think the bits I've seen looks very exciting, very good fixture, and a Graham Potter team should, you know, have a good chance of a clean sheet at least, and potentially some attacking returns. So as I was saying earlier, this isn't 100% set, and it might change before the deadline. I'd say I'm probably locked on 12 of the 15 picks, but you know, if I do make any changes from here, it's either going to be players from the same teams. You know, I end up with a Murillo instead of a Williams because I've downgraded a Porro to a Romero to a Van der Ven or something. Or, you know, it'll be certainly players from the 15 you see now in this draft, or from one of the 2 earlier drafts I showed on Tuesday's video. So yeah, almost there, but yeah, just sort of the edge pieces to fix at the moment. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.